In this Inspirational People interview on the Share Life podcast, I'm speaking with Jason Fernandes. Jason, did I get that right?
Yes, you were one of the few people. Yeah, so thank you.
Fernandes.
Thank you for that.
He's an actor, a native of Long Island, New York, if you're not aware. He's the most notable in his roles at USC Theater Department, including Gus Coverly from Arcadia, Link Larkin from Hairspray, as well as his role of Eugene Jerome from Biloxi Blues at Columbia's Workshop Theater. Film and credits include George Clooney from the Kelley Files and Rosita's partners from The Walking Dead. Jason and I, we're both Jasons, so Jason is an awesome name. So
Great
Jason
name,
and I
actually.
met on the set of Ozark, and it was the filming of season 3, and it was 2019 or so. And so on set, the two of us connected, and we talked about a variety of topics. And just throughout the day of filming, it was just a great time to get together. We connected on social medias. Since he's a professional actor and I'm just a casual intermingler, we stay connected. No. But anyways, as I was watching The Walking Dead, the season 10, and the finale episode of season 10, I saw Jason's face as one of the soldiers in the episode, and I was like, "It's you!" And so I messaged him. And once again, this year, season 11, he was a soldier in the Commonwealth with Rosita, who's a character from the show. And I saw him again, and I was like, "It's you again!" And so that led to us saying, "Hey, let's get on the podcast, and I'd love for you to share your story." I understand, acting is a tough thing. It's a tough career path to follow. I've had some friends that have gone down that road, and it's difficult to get somewhere and to get the type of success that most actors are looking for. But what's impressed me about you and inspired me, and why I admire you, is because of your commitment to it. You are fully committed, and it's something. The journey to get to it and the journey through it has shaped who you are as a person. And I'd love for others to get to know you and to hear your story, because I think they'll be inspired as I've been. So before we jump into the many questions that I have, just tell us about you and your story, and how you ended up as an actor and how you ended up on this podcast.
Every moment in our lives has led to this. Yeah, when I think of it, I have only one memory I go back to, and that is simply sitting on the couch, late at night. There's snow out, you can't really go anywhere. Everybody's huddled around a CRT television that weighs 50,000 tons. And just going to Blockbuster and bringing something home for every, you put it in, you press play, and, you watch the ad. I guess it was like putting on a record for 90s children, but it was very ritualistic, where me and my family could gather for all of a couple hours or whatever it was, and everything else just stopped. And for all of a couple hours, you could maybe, you could be, again, there was, if there were any influential films in my life that made me want to do this, it was watching dinosaurs in Jurassic Park and and episode 2, Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
I am a prequel freak. So I remember seeing that movie clear as day in the theater, and then the lead up to episode 3, it was mind blowing for a young boy in Long Island. So,
so that would have been, so like, how old were you when Attack of the Clones came out then?
That was 2002. So I was 7 years old, and leading up to 2005, we had a lot, in between. We had Genndy Tartakovsky's animated Clone Wars series. He did the Powerpuff Girls and Samurai. It was in the style of Samurai Jack, and it was chef's kiss.
Yeah.
And it kind of teed it up, and, you know, you had the video games, you had the CD-ROMs. I don't know if anybody even knows what that is. And then watching Revenge of the Sith in 2005, and, you know, again, there's, you know, Breaking Benjamin's out, Three Doors Down. It was a great time for young angst and emo culture. But, you know, those were very pivotal things.
So how did that connect the dots between you're seeing movies, you're seeing people acting, to all of a sudden I want to be involved in that in some way? Or did that come later?
I mean, I don't, you know, I don't know how to explain it, but I just remember feeling a certain way and having catharsis towards what I was seeing and hearing and experiencing. The idea that I could feel something or learn something from what I was watching, if I could derive meaning, if my peers, if my closest, you know, family could derive some kind of value out of what we were all experiencing together. And then, throw in some special effects, throw in the lasers, throw in the pyrotechnics. It's like, why not? You know, everyone else is doing it, so why not you?
Yeah. So why in front of the camera instead of behind it?
Well, you know, it's funny. I remember I had a split. My psyche like split in two by the time I had gotten to University of South Carolina. K through 12, you know, again, I remember in New York, they offer a drama club at 10 years old, 5th grade. And then at that age, I also did choir. So for 5th grade through senior year of high school, I did not stop. It was drama and it was choir at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it was all the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, performance or whatever you call that. So by the time I got to South Carolina, you know, I was more musically inclined. I had a mentor who was a musical genius at the piano. And he for 4 or 5 years straight, I mean, I learned vocalization. I learned how to sight read, how to be handed a sheet of music I've never seen before, and then to know exactly what's going on in the pitch, the rhythms, the harmonies.
Yeah.
And, you know, I wanted to do that in college, maybe choir again, continue it. You know, I was never the strongest singer in the room, but I knew I could act. I knew I love dance, you know, it's like the dance, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm just naturally expressive. So I said, you know what, I'm all in. I'm getting my theater degree. It's sloppily hung in this frame, but
Okay,
there she is.
So how did you go from New York to Carolina? Like, how did that happen?
2008 was a crazy year. You know, the whole time of my life, from the time I could remember, which was about, again, like 99, 2000, 2001. So I'm very privy to the possibility that just other world events, you know, maybe I wasn't fully cognizant of or didn't fully understand, may have also had a part in understanding civil responsibility. And it was cool. College kind of validated that for me, because you go into college. I had never taken an acting class since I got there, but when I got there, you know, you learn, you know, set construction, design, and all the other things, but you learn in a historical context and theater history that this phenomenon that we call acting has gone on forever. It's been around just as long as we have, and it's going to continue for as long as we're around.
Yeah.
So, you know, I brought it to you in the notes, where, you know, the Greeks are kind of, you know, credited for, you know, Western, you know, theater, and that's true. It has more ritualistic roots thousands of years earlier, in ancient Egypt. So, and again, you see it in Japan, you see it in all different flavors and cultures of the world. So it used to be a very ritualistic, you had to participate. There were, if this is where your status in the community, in the city, is kind of at stake. You may be running for governor of Athens or whatever. But you look at plays like Lysistrata, like Agamemnon, that go back forever, and you look at what they talk about, and a lot of it is critique. A lot of it is human emotion. Again, they were not afraid to challenge what was going on at the time. Shakespeare was not afraid to write Hamlet as a commentary on moral violence. Mm-hmm. Just, does Hamlet feign or fake being crazy after coming home from college and figuring out, my uncle killed my dad, he's married to my mom now, and he kind of runs the show and whatever. But there is a learning component to acting. There is a spiritual component to acting that I would like to foster. Yeah. Going forward in just everything that I do. But I think it's an energy you can't replicate, especially in theater.
All right. So, one of the things I like to talk about on the podcast and just generally is about living well, living better. You've been on this journey, and so what does it mean for you to live better, live well? And is there anything about your story that's contributed to that?
It's funny, I used to believe when I was younger that a lot was just generally out of my control. And I would say that's just a natural thing. I can't help it if there's a tornado outside. Mm-hmm. But to me, choosing better is having that understanding that you can plan, you can work hard, you can premeditate as much as you like, how something's going to go, your plans, things just happen, and it's the things that you don't account for that might actually be life-changing in positive ways.
Yeah. So I guess, what would be an example of that for you?
Yeah, I mean, this is a very good question. Something I've recognized is I find it hard to open up. I find myself, and maybe, again, everybody had to be on lockdown. So, yeah. But I remember before this pandemic started, I was given a life-changing event that ultimately changed the entire direction of where I saw myself. When I was in college and even in school, I just didn't like it. All I wanted to do was just get out and do this.
It was holding you back.
I felt that. Well, I need to learn. I need to. Yeah. I need to know things, but I can't be an actor with a high school degree. I knew that from the beginning.
But was there a point in the high school where you didn't know about the acting, or had you always had that through the whole experience?
Yeah, you do this long enough, and it depends on who you listen to. It depends on which voices you kind of vocalize and feed to yourself. I believed many people who had critiques of me, and genuine critiques of maybe, I guess, being a young actor. Again, in college, they broke you down. They would say this all the time: we're here to break you down so we can build you back up. But what is that other than planting a flower? This flower has grown naturally out of the soil, out of its roots. It finds the sun, it finds the water, it finds nourishment, and it grows. Are you telling me you're going to cut that flower off at the base so that you can make a new one in your own image? No. So I didn't agree with that. My classmates didn't agree with that mindset. And we generally said on an institutional level, we have to go our own way. We have to take charge where the people we're looking up to might not have our long-term interest at heart. So for me, in 2016, I had gained 30 pounds. I was pounding the pavement. I was just a sad boy. So I said, well, you can be an actor, or you can, kind of do what you're doing right now, but you can't do both.
Yeah.
So I said major change was needed, but ultimately it led to a life-changing thing where, like many college kids, you get caught up in behaviors that are just so dangerous to young people, to anybody, people in general, it's not restricted to youth. So it's a rough place, college.
But why do people go there? Why did you go there? What was it, an escape? Was it something else?
Well, I just remember, again, I had believed the notion, if you didn't go to college, you're not going to earn XYZ. You're not going to XYZ. Not. So the fear of not having a safety or security net under myself and for the rest of my life, that's a very interesting thing to say to a child across cultures. So in that way, I never liked school. I identified with the kids who were weird or who were counterculture, because you know what, those kids were the ones who were saying, yeah, this whole thing, it just doesn't make sense. I don't like it either. So I those were the people I gravitated towards, and I at the end of it, I saw myself going down a path I would not allow to this day.
Yeah.
What it led to, and again, I've never shared this out loud, but I was out one night with friends. I was a designated driver. It was raining, and we had known, again, they teach you in college, you can't go a certain limit within an hour if you're going to do that. So we tried to do all of our bases one night, just going out on a regular Friday. And I remember I was with a couple I was very good friends with. And, we were leaving. It was 2 a.m. in the morning. We had said, okay, let's get home safe. It's raining out. You hold the GPS. Doesn't matter how many times you plan for it. Doesn't matter how many times you take stock and understand. What happened the night I'm describing in 2018 in June, ultimately our car hydroplaned, and I had hit a tree. The car had flipped on its left side on the driver's side. My entire rib cage had taken the hit, and the passenger side was facing the sky. And, in the moment, I remember everything. I just remember, hearing my friend Emily in the back, my friend Corey in the passenger seat, and I'm just down. I'm just on the ground. And I remember just thinking, oh my God, what have I done to them? I can't move. I can't speak. I can't do anything. I'm immobilized, and I can still hear them. So I was admitted that night on, I think it was June 28th. And I stayed in the ICU for 3 days, and they had to, because I had cracked the entire left side of my rib cage, I had severed an artery by my spleen. That had to ultimately get embalmed from the inside. They had put a metal coil kind of up somewhere, I'm not going to say, and literally heated the wire so that my artery could close, and then I wouldn't bleed out from the inside. Having said that, it's a miracle. It's, as bad as that all sounds, I cannot fundamentally explain waking up the following day and things were just different. On a fundamental, almost ethereal level, my entire nihilistic, I guess, mindset that you develop in youth when you grow up in the, just with the news in America, you know, it's a unique experience here. So I was given a second chance. And since then, my life has been ultimately, I would say, heaven. It's heaven on earth. And I find myself questioning sometimes, is this even real? I don't care. Point is that I'm here. I've always known what I wanted, and I'm not going to stop.
So it was a clarifying moment for you. In regards to your friends, how did they fare in the accident, and were they okay?
Well, no. My friend Emily, who was in the back, she had a concussion. I don't know when she left exactly, but she left that night or that morning. Her boyfriend, Corey, was a paramedic. He was in the passenger seat adjacent to me. And he sprang into action. I mean, as far as I know, I don't believe, again, I was told he just had a scratch on his finger, but you know, I would imagine it was more than that. They left, you know, on the first day. I stayed, and I didn't know how they were going to be. I didn't know if I had brought serious negative change to my friends' lives, you know, in all of seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So when I guess going back 180 to living better, I believe living better is understanding things just happen. Lightning can strike your tree, and you can use that, you can harness that for good. So I bug the crap out of my friends every weekend. I make sure I call everybody, you know, so I recognize that so many people, mentors, peers, have ultimately brought me here to even this podcast with you.
Yeah.
And I can't thank them enough. Can't thank them enough.
Yeah. So is there a couple things come to mind. Is there a facet of that where, you know, being nihilistic, it's one thing to be nihilistic in a conceptual way, like in my mind, right? And to kind of slowly unfold. But to experience an event like that and to see perhaps the end result of that type of nihilism in terms of like, here are real people that are being potentially hurt. In this case, it was an accident, right? But that's a very viscerally different type of experience to think about that pain and suffering and the edge of death up close. Do you connect any way to those two contrast between those two?
I find it interesting that find it interesting that it's almost like a coin. You can look at it heads or tails. You can hand it to somebody, heads or tails. Ultimately, that coin represents two sides, and it holds the same value. I think a healthy dose of nihilism maybe is good, when you're generally, again, critiquing, when you're challenging, when you're creating thought. These are important things. I don't know if it was just the culture or, the environment of being a young person on their own, trying to carve a destiny they don't even know. I always just wanted to create some meaning, even through that lens. I had seen, again, and I think it just goes back to just, turn off the television sometimes, unless you're, but I find that it's not an absolute. I don't find myself going to the absolution of, well, believe in everything, but believe in anything. Maybe the fact that something just is okay. It's hard enough to just be something. Just be. That alone is just hard enough, I think, especially for young people. You don't have to model, yourself after other people in the way, a 4-year-old might cling to a 6-year-old, wanting to be just like them. The power to have influential people in power, people of influence. These are all things that make you who you are. These are all things that kind of maybe say, well, I don't have nearly as much as that guy, or, wow, maybe I had it all to begin with. This is where I think people generally, I think this is where people kind of look for some kind of clarity. So the clarity I've always found in answering life's hardest questions, whether it is, joy on one hand or the other, the alternative, it's all one big party. And I'm not ready to leave. And in that way, I owe it to the people who have made me excellent, in the hopes that I could continue their excellence for somebody like me who needed it most.
So you in that statement, as well as previous ones, there is a part of you that's very oriented towards other people. When you were in the accident, you saw your friends and go and asked yourself, what have I done to them? In that case, it's, I want to help them, right? So tell me more about that dynamic about you, and why that is something that came to mind so quickly, and why it's something that you care so deeply about.
Well, I would say even earlier than that, I was the runt on the playground. I got bullied a lot as a kid. Mm-hmm. And, again, I guess you could say maybe everybody gets a little something, no matter where you fall. But I just remember being very keen on whether it was my peers or whether it was parents or community members or teachers. I've always been very attuned to what people have said, to what they haven't said, in between words. And I don't know. I mean, I always saw, if I saw some kid getting picked on the playground, it's like, yeah, I'm going over there. I'm tired. I was getting, fed up of getting, hit with a tennis ball. You play butts up, you throw. Remember, I don't know if you guys played that game down here, but you throw you and your friends, you throw a tennis ball at the wall, and let's just say you drop it, whatever. If you don't run and you touch the wall, then your friends get to, peg the ball at you. It's like, well,
Yeah.
what kind of game is that? Rough game.
Yeah.
So I just said, I never identified with that. I never identified with, I guess, just reactive aggression.
Yeah.
But ultimately, just to close it out, I just remember in college, I just remember having a split where, that voice, teacher on the playground calls everybody inside. Hey, you're having too much fun, get back in here. Sometimes that voice, when you reach a certain age, becomes your voice. When I hit college, when I had the accident, and when I had to graduate, I didn't even know if I was going to make it. I really skated on, getting those 500 level courses in, just to fill the, get all that minutia in. But ultimately saying to myself, all right, you're having too much fun, get back in there, write the paper, So being my own parent was a very important part of this process.
But is it the accident that shifted where you took responsibility, or is that the difference between one of the differences between before and after is you took responsibility, you carried the burden?
Admittedly, it wasn't overnight.
Yeah.
Just kind of muddling through it and healing and sleeping on the couch because I can't sleep in the bed. I can't lay down, I just remember my mother being next to me and just saying, look, you can't do this. You can't do this to yourself. You can't get in your own way. You can't cheat your own self out of the hard work, the pop quizzes, the birthday, whatever. It's like everything that I have done up to now is going to make what's going to happen down the line possible. So I don't look over my shoulder. I don't look back at Long Island and say, well, I want to go back home anymore. It's not that I don't, but I remember being kind of caught in my past and my future and just saying, well, maybe I'm just here now. Maybe I'm in the present. So,
yeah.
Don't look too far ahead. Don't look over your shoulder too far. Just feet firmly planted, eyes open, ears on. Trust yourself, and you will do fine.
Okay. So is that what you would say, or is there something else you would say to that person that was the old you, the nihilistic version of you? If
Absolutely.
That person's listening or watching you now, what would you speak to them?
Yeah, I would just say, don't believe everything you read. You have to, it kind of goes back to trusting yourself. Like, I don't know, like, I guess you could say, like, I'll use an example. Like I smoked cigarettes for 2 years, admittedly, when I was 18. The only reason I did that, and I don't do it anymore, I never liked it. I would always feel sick and whatever, but I did it because my friends did it. Did it because it was a social thing. It was just a social activity. No different than, eating, going to dinner or going out on a Friday night and everything that comes with. But I didn't really identify with that either. I can count on 2 hands the amount of times I've been to 5 Points in Columbia, South Carolina. I wasn't there. I didn't want to go there. I didn't want to be sick as a dog every weekend. I didn't want to throw what little money I had down the drain. Yeah. I didn't. And, I'm no saint, whatever, we did house parties, instead, but I just knew what other people were getting into. I was very keen on the fact a lot of kids in college take, Vyvanse or Adderall, performance enhancing drugs to get them to pass these tests because everybody's freaked out that they're not going to pass. The courses are getting exponentially harder. And it's really, a lot of it goes back to just being afraid of financial ruin, that you're not good, that you got into this and you're not going to pay off your debt. If your parents are happy enough to help you out, what does it mean for them if you might not be doing so well? What does it mean if you believe if you don't graduate, you will not be successful in life? This is scary stuff. And I
how prominent is that message, at least with the people you grew up with, in terms of their parents to them? Was that pervasive across the board, or was it a segment of your peers?
Yeah, and this isn't any sort of commentary on any particular people. I just would say, to generalize an entire swath of young people, I see a lot, of kids who believe you have to be in the top 40 Forbes to be successful. You have to have a 6-figure salary. You have to have a square jaw. You have to be 6'2". Have to graduate, even, get your master's, get your doctorate. There's so many doctors who aren't guaranteed jobs. There's a lot of out of work doctors right now. So even that's not a guarantee. And you have a much higher mountain of debt. So, you hear it from these people who made it, Bill Gates or Steve Jobs. You listen to their interviews and they would just say, look, I don't, the GPA, the classes, we don't really look at that. We look at what have you done? What are you doing? What's your experience? And that is something I believe is not taught enough in the public school system. I had ultimately a sense that I had to take charge of my own career, of my own destiny, because who's going to do it for you? Your parents can say, oh, you could be a lawyer, you could be a doctor, whatever. And that's true. Science and mathematics is actually important. But it's not the end all be all.
So how does that apply to work? What does it mean to work smarter?
I love this question because I don't know. I guess I love to answer it, but yeah, when it's not enough to work hard, work hard. There's no substitute for hard work. It shows. Working smart right now is, again, you can move that rock from A to B, but can you make it work for you? Can you make it something, bigger? That is working smart. Starting a company where you're moving rocks, hiring a couple employees. So for me, the greatest thing I love about acting, the greatest thing I love about this institution or this profession is the pressure's off. Failure is encouraged. You need failure. You need to fall on your face. You need to stumble through the lines. You need to, you need to. So failure was highly encouraged, running through it and say, your director telling you, well, go a little deeper with that. Like every graduate professor.
Yeah. But how does that differ than someone might say, well, I still have to live somewhere, I still have to eat. So there's a sense of survival there as well, right?
Yeah, it's not a self-imposed failure. Mm. It's not getting in your own way to artificially, create the hurdles of which you jump. Those hurdles naturally exist. Things naturally happen. So creating, working smart and choosing better, they're really the same thing. you can take charge. You can kind of manifest and, kind of put yourself on a path. You can write it out and go through the steps. And that's everything, consistent, just wanting to do something, gives you a leg up on people who are there and they're working a job they do not want to do. It's soul crushing. Mm-hmm. So I did not see myself, my future self, in a position where I could wake up in a job where I could say, I can't do this. I didn't want that for myself.
Well, so many people are, though. They although perhaps the pandemic has changed that for many. They thought, maybe I don't have that. Maybe I should do that. But what would you say to those people that they're in that place of they know they should have quit like 2 years ago, but they just haven't,
If there's one thing I would say, I get it. If I'm a young kid, and I'm looking at the bill, I'm looking at the file, most expensive piece of paper. I don't know if I want to put myself in that kind of position. Right out of high school, I could do landscaping. I could work for a year, 2 years, maybe have enough tenure, have enough reputation to now have enough volume of work to where I could say, oh, well, this is getting too much. I need to hire, one guy or two guys to split the difference. Now you're at year 3 and you're running a business. You have consistent quality work and you have paid employees under you. So you could be an entrepreneur right out of the gate with a clear and imminent strategy, execute it, and then reap the benefits of your hard work.
Yeah. So
you don't have to do the 4 degrees is what I'm saying. You don't have to over prescribe college. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's not the end all be all.
Yeah. And so, and some of how you think very entrepreneurially. How does that apply to your work? The work that you do, or the way that you approach your work?
I don't, I almost feel, I don't know. I almost feel predisposed. I've directed, I've done set construction, I've done set design, I've done costuming, so I've always had the benefit of just knowing exactly what it is, that I needed to be. If it was any space, and even I remember being in high school, and if I didn't get cast at all, your name's not on the callback sheet, and I would say, well, put me in tech. I contributing to that, what that 4-year-old discovered on the couch watching movies, is why I do this at all. It's really just using what I know to satisfy the 4-year-old that's really at the controls.
Yeah. So speaking of younger people, what do you think about mentoring? Is it important to you? How do you approach it? How has it benefited you over your life?
Yeah, I mean, there are key figures who have come into my life, and have, I get, they call it a toolbox. Don't throw anything away. Everybody, kind of says, if you look at, Meisner or Adler or all these other guys, they all think they're right. They're all saying the same thing. But I just remember having different flavors of teachers. But when I think of particular key figures in my life, there's one guy I go back to over and over again, and that is Mr. Jay Forrest of Clover High School, South Carolina. When I had moved from Long Island, I went, I did 1 year of middle school, and I went right into high school right out of the gate. So I was 13, 14, you know, so by that time it's like, okay, you know, you're already you're not fully cooked, but halfway, you know, a little bit. So I guess my personality, my goals, you know, my sense of self was cemented before the move, but coming down from a place like that to, you know, the border of North and South Carolina and Southern Charlotte, it's like culture shock. So I had to assimilate. I found myself in an entirely new environment with a different set of values, a different set of what life is like. And I had to assimilate fast. You know,
is that something that you think was unique to you? Like most people don't experience that, or at least not at that age, where you have to kind of be one group of many versus in a dominant group of which you don't have to think that way.
Yeah, I was, again, I think I said it before, I had one friend. I had one best friend in New York, and that's all I needed. Hi, Nick. But when I got to South Carolina, it was this thing where I was just, you know, realizing the environment I was coming out of and understanding I'm walking into an entirely different culture, almost an entirely different country on its own. I'm the outsider, and, you know, this is my second chance. So I recognize the fact that just through naturally what happened, I was given a second chance to kind of, okay, you know, can maybe reinvent myself, or, you know, maybe be Joe Cool. Yeah. You know, nobody knows who I am. I can go in totally blind, sunglasses, you know, whatever, but that doesn't work. And I learned quickly from, you know, people there, from my mentors there, that I don't know, Southern hospitality, I guess, and charm, you know.
Do you think that being an outsider in that sense prepared you for acting in the sense that, you know, breaking into the industry, you know, you are an outsider until you get in, so to speak? So is that the case, or is that a false assumption?
Absolutely. Because if I could maybe put a spin on it, I feel like I've worked every conceivable part-time job there is. I've worked in a grocery store, worked in a warehouse, worked in a restaurant, worked in this. There's many different paths I've taken to kind of facilitate this movie making need of mine. And I find that variety, having the variety of different cultures, different ways of thinking in the Northeast, and having an entirely different, almost not unilateral experience, but having, you know, just another set of experiences in a new environment, fuels me to try it on, see if it fits. Yeah. And that's what I love about scripts. That's what I love about throwing myself into roles is, you know, they ask you all the time, you know, well, are you serious, or are you funny, or, you know, what are you? Give me the script and I'll worry about that. You know, he who reads the script most wins. He who understands the facts and the truth of what's in front of you, I think, is everything.
Yeah. So speaking of stories, how have stories, real or fictional narrative stories, how have they shaped you as a person? I mean, obviously it's shaped you quite a bit because, you know, you're involved in it, but tell us about that and go on.
Yeah. You know, I put this up, you know, for a reason. And again, this is a narrative. I go back to this guy, you know, my hero,
Rocky
Sylvester
Balboa.
Stallone. Well, yeah, him too. But if you read his story, unbelievable. Again, I not to speak, for him or, but from my understanding of it was, guy was in a 250 square foot apartment in, I don't know, Bushwick. And he was writing Rocky. I think he had some like bit parts and some other things. You might have seen him like here or there as like a street thug or whatever you'd call it. And at that time, he's doing these little, again, for many actors, you do these bit things. And for him, he had a script that he was attached to that he had done himself. And he took it and said, look, this is mine, I'm not going to give this away unless I play Rocky, unless I sort of embody this role I created. I believe the guy got pushback, and, it got so bad, him trying to figure it out. He had to sell his dog, Bupkis. So that's a guy where I look and I'm like, wow, that guy stuck it out. No matter what the cost, even to that degree, like where you sacrifice, you make a sacrifice to fuel this thing that is higher than myself or anyone or groups of people. The meaning we get out of the stories we tell, it ain't about getting hit. It's about getting hit and moving forward. So, you could say real or nonfiction, fiction or nonfiction, or, with historical or non-fictional elements. This is what it means to be a human being, so let it ride, learn something, try new things, and keep moving forward. Dang it. So,
well, and I get the sense from you that you're interested in playing not just a role like that, but also to be a person that encourages others in that same way.
Those were the actors that influenced me. The Jeff Goldblums, the Matthew Brodericks, trying to think who was popular at that time. I could put any name in the space, but those were the guys who I don't know who they are as people. I don't see Jeff Goldblum and I'm saying, oh, I'm watching Jeff Goldblum and his problems. I'm seeing Dr. Ian Malcolm, totally separate from the man Jeff Goldblum. Actually, I have his autograph somewhere. I've had his autograph since like the late 90s. It's somewhere around here, I think. But I don't know. Whatever. So these are the guys who doing what they did, not who they are or not what they have, just doing what they did, doing the dance, doing the play, making the play. That was the thing that made me want to do this. It wasn't any particular person or personality. It was the idea that I could create something larger than life.
Yeah. And being a part of it.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of diving into stories. The other aspect of humanity, being a human, living with others, being an effective individual or community, is systems. So what do you think about systems and how do you use them? How do they affect you?
Only if I believe systems, if my definition of systems is just kind of, it's like the firmware. It's like it's like a nervous system. Mm-hmm. The telephone wires that kind of send signals and just generally make things happen. When I think of systems that make things happen, like, college, you pay them. I heard my freshman year, like one of my first days, they tell you, another mentor of mine, David Britt, once said, you have more power than any senior professor here. They are here for you. And ultimately, you're paying for it. So what is the value, that you get out of it? Can you hang out after class, and can you kind of maybe annoy the crap out of that guy and say, have 20 questions? I was just that guy. I always loved learning and understanding the way of things, and where do we come from? Where are we going? How did we get here? I think these are all important things. Everybody knows this in the back of their heads. It's nothing exclusive to me. Does that answer your question? I totally.
So I guess how do systems help you answer those questions?
So,
or do they?
I would say systems might be the means to which I derive understanding. Systems might be, again, this mug is the system for which I give myself coffee. This is the system from which I am able to consciously and effectively talk to you in a way that makes sense. I love this system.
And what comes to mind is just our dependency on so many systems of which we are beneficiaries, but of which we probably don't even realize or appreciate. We think we are independent in many ways, but we are highly dependent, right?
Yeah, I would say people are just highly influential. People, everybody's a product of their place and time, So for me, I remember in college, for me, that's just my perfect analogy. I just remember I had teachers who had my back. And they were sort of the constants that kept me going, where I may have convinced myself, well, maybe you should, you can always come back, or, you just do the thing, and because again, this has no college degree requirement to do this line of profession. But I just saw that when theater, I had hit a wall with theater, I said, well, there is Netflix. There is this thing called streaming, movie. So I find it actually very weird in my work that the natural way of things was that I didn't want to do theater. I love that, and I always will. But there's this medium, there's a system that's like a coin, same side, a different side, same value. Theater or film, and I said it's all the same. So I looked at the system and said, well, it's not enough. It's not enough to just have a direct line of 2 + 2 is 4, and how do you feel about that? What are your opinions on this? It's just knowing and trusting who you are and what you want. And if something isn't working out for you in a system that's probably bigger than yourself, it's probably very imposing. When you're confronted with the staff members and the institution, the idea that school represents, you believe that they know everything, they have your best interest, and you need to learn from them. At some point, I don't know if it's you learning enough, or you, I guess, just having a better sense of self. You start to take charge, and you start to say, well, systems are great. I've worked for systems. Systems need to work for me. I can go to class, I can hang out in the back, I can cut up with my friends, whatever. But that's not me using the system as I optimally could. Me sitting in the front row and asking 20 questions is what's going to benefit me in the long term, in the short term and the long term. So what are the future positive outcomes you want to create for yourself? And if you have an idea of what that is, totally separate from what's going on around you, do it. Bill Gates built windows in his garage. You know, it's like there's a million other examples, but there are people who do things. We are so good at just doing things. But individuality is genius. Going against the grain, standing out, you know, you're different, you're weird, but you're not following, I guess, you're not following the herd. Mm-hmm. Where everybody might say, well, you know, we're kind of all going down this path, you know, but we're in it together. The people who kind of break off and do their own thing, it's a risk, you know, you might fail, you might succeed. You can go out, you know, in a snowstorm, you can go out and play outside. You can be freezing, you know, you have the risk of getting sick, but it's fun.
Yeah.
So go outside and play.
So how do you've made a few comments like figure out what you want and go after it, you know, get clear on your dreams and pursue them, trust yourself. How do you filter those things when they are out of whack? Perhaps your dream is not such a good thing, or what you want is not a good thing. How do you filter what is good and not good in those contexts? Perhaps you can't trust yourself because yourself is telling you things that are harmful. So how do you filter through those dynamics? Or what would be your advice in those regards?
Yeah, you know, everybody's different. Everybody's from somewhere. And the cool thing about being in America, or the cool thing about being in New York, specifically being a cultural hub, having all these different kinds of flavors of the human experience, were the things that made me say, well, I know what it's like to not be them. I can't belong. I can't be in that group. It's like, you know, but I have, you know, for me, like I'm here and everybody else is somebody else. It's like,
I guess what's informing that, you know what, this group is not a group I can be a part of. What's going on there? That's informing that.
Yeah, you know, I think maybe I just had like a unique set of value systems. I guess I inherited or I learned myself.
Yeah.
But I always knew I just didn't ever want to put myself in harm's way for the sake of fun or thrill. Or compromising my health. It's like, you know, now I think we can all kind of agree there are more important things than just career or just one pillar of your life. So understanding what good means for you might not be the same for me, but be your own parent. Keep yourself out of harm's way. Trust yourself. And, you know, if something doesn't feel right, if something doesn't really feel right to you, like if you feel like, you know, you're being pressured, or if you feel like you're kind of being marched or influenced to go down a path you do not see yourself going down, the best possible outcome for you is to get off that path as early as possible. It's a lot easier to get off that path you do not want to go down when you're at the fork in the road. You didn't set any footsteps down there. So understanding the variety of paths, the multiple choice, figuring everything out. I don't have all the answers, but I always say baby steps, even baby steps down the path that feels good is progress.
Yeah. So you made the comment, you have value systems that have informed some of these types of principles that you're explaining. What if someone doesn't have those, or what if they're lacking in those? Perhaps it was their upbringing or lack of upbringing. How do they wrestle with that? You talk about standards and having a standard of goodness to move towards. But for many people, they may never have experienced that or never been taught that, of which is out there, right? Or maybe the version of it they got was corrupted,
Yeah, for me, in my own experience, when I think about those moments where I was not as conscious as I probably could have been, when you're a young teenager, just generally wanting to be rebellious, and it's like, what is it, Huck Finn or Tom Sawyer who balances himself on the fence to impress Becky? It's like, you're gonna break your neck, kid. Take her to coffee. It's like, so I don't know. I don't know if I've answered the question.
Well, I'm wondering.
I'm sorry. So for me, I've had, a move, to a cross country move when I was young. I had a near death experience with friends involved, and I'm out here, pursuing the thing I've always wanted to do 138%. So I've had different stages, I've had different chapters, but everything's just a moment in time. I'm not, my 23-year-old self is not my 26 going on 27-year-old self. So in youth, these things are particularly useful because it's rapid change almost overnight in such a short amount of time. Like, growing pains is like the perfect example. You are the thing that is, you are the thing that transforms into something else, and you are the thing that is transforming into something else. So you are who you are. You're gonna be something else, somebody new, if you grow and do all the right things. But you are also growing, understanding you do not have to be Elon Musk overnight. I think is the most important thing I could share. It's like, I always said I could do it. I could have a teacher's salary being an actor. I never wanted to be the greatest actor ever. I just wanted to do it. So money is not success. Wealth is, materialism. That may be success for some people. Maybe I just don't know where to shop.
Well, I think what I'm hearing from you is, one, you ought to define what success is before you start pursuing it.
Yeah, to those who may say, I hear it a lot, especially from kids in college, a lot of kids who have undeclared majors. I don't know what I want, or I don't know. It's okay not to know. But at some point, you gotta know what that is. Otherwise, the danger of being adrift, the danger of being lost, the danger of uncertainty is getting lost in the woods.
Yeah. If you don't have a place you're going, then lost is very difficult to even know that you're lost, right?
Get your bearings, map it out. Don't have an A to B plan. have an A to Z strategy. If B and C and D and E and F and G, if those things aren't working out for you, well, maybe I will, or not me, but J, K, L, M, N, O, P might work for you.
Yeah.
So understand, failure is it's the greatest teacher. Perfectionism or results, that's not realistic.
Yeah.
So we need to embrace your failure, embrace that you are learning and you are going somewhere.
So what would you say to someone that has conflated failure with their identity? If they fail, they are a failure. Like, how do you separate those two, and how would you recommend others do that?
Well, coming from somebody who I guess is a self-labeled perfectionist, I used to think that of myself. I used to not have that dissonance between my career failures or my educational failures or relationship failures. It's like, what are we talking about? It's like there's so many pillars in life you just need to maintain. And typically when you excel at any one thing, the other things kind of not get as much attention.
Yeah.
So balance in all things is essential. Knowing, I may not know how I'm going to get there, but just saying I'm coming to America, or I'm making this life-altering decision. Atlanta was not part of the plan, but let's give it a shot.
Yeah.
Roll the dice, and you'd be surprised. You would be surprised how throwing yourself in an environment where you don't know anybody, nobody knows you, you don't know where you are, that's freedom. That is choice. That's you.
Yeah.
If that's what you're into.
Yeah. So your level of being fully committed, I wrote a book called Path of the Freelancer, and I talk about levels of commitment. And there's 4 stages, and the 4th stage is being fully committed. And when I talk to freelancers, what I'll do is I'll find out, to figure out how committed they are, I'll ask them, hypothetically, your bank account's empty, you have 0 clients, you've just lost all of your clients this weekend. What's the thing you think to do next? If they think, well, I better go get a job, they're not fully committed to freelance. But if instead they think, to your A to Z strategy, how am I going to get the next client? Then they are fully committed. And so much of what you talk about is in that vein of, this is it. Like, there is no plan B. It's figure out how to get to the next step, how to get to the next thing. And would you agree with, is that a good way to think about it?
Yeah, I would say in that spirit, it takes months to build a friendship. It takes seconds to lose one.
Yeah.
Or, put anything in that kind of blank space, but relations, keeping up with people, you may have only have spoken to for, a little amount of time, might lead to something later.
Yeah.
That is meaningful and worthwhile.
Yeah.
It's oftentimes it's the last minute things. It's the things you don't expect in your periphery that have life-changing moments.
Yeah. So what else did you want to share that we didn't get a chance to get to?
Well, I guess just in the spirit of when it comes to mentorship and the future, I'm very privy to I've always been very curious in acting, even like when two people are speaking to each other, what are they saying? How are they saying it? What do they want out of the other person? You know, if you could call that relationship analysis, or throwing yourself into a context that's not yours. Oh goodness, I feel like I've lost track already. Just one more time. Go again.
Just what else do you want to share with us before we close out here?
Yeah. Oh, lighting. Yeah. That guy's fired. Yeah. So when it comes to the future and when it comes to mentorship, you know, I do understand, you know, for every moment that I spend on camera or behind the camera in the war of attention, we find ourselves fighting, you know, on social media or just, you know, trying to get your name out there, just trying to get a job. It's never been more important than right now to understand, well, you know, I could be, you know, putting satellites in space. I could be developing apps. I could be the first job I wanted, you know, when they ask you in elementary school, the first time they asked me that question, I think it was like first grade. My answer was actually, I wanted to be a police officer. By the time I had gotten to middle school, the answer had changed into I wanted to be a social worker or a therapist. I always understood and that I have this curiosity for how people interact with each other. And I think maybe that's a helpful tool in, you know, why I do this. So I'm going to do this as long as possible, but if I do that, if I continue down the line of acting, somebody ultimately, you know, whether it's an agent or a casting director, has to kind of say, well, let's give him a chance. You know, doing my own projects, I look for people who want it. I look for people who might be perfect in that thing and say, you know, who would make a good, but rearing the next generation, rearing the people, the excellent people who haven't yet to be here, is how this thing continues, is how we get to enjoy telling stories that span time, culture. These are all universal languages we can all understand and create meaning out of. So if I can provide that for another kid watching a television series or a movie and saying, oh my God, you know, I want to do that, you know, well, then that's how I, you know, that's how I do what I do. It's what made me do this. But maybe down the line, I would consider taking a more hands-on approach in having people access, you know, this industry, having an access to their own creativity, having an access to what they really want. That's all acting is what do I want? How do I get it? What if I don't get it? You know, so if I can teach somebody what do you want and how to get it, well, not how to get it, you know, that's where personal responsibility comes in. That is mentorship.
Yeah.
Functionally or fundamentally, I have an arts degree. Fundamentally, we have a responsibility.
Yeah. With great power comes great responsibility, right?
Oh, Uncle Ben, Aunt May. You know, it's funny. I get so much flack because my friends, you know, they say, "Oh, have you seen the new movie? Have you seen this new thing? Have you seen that?" I find myself like not like watching as many new things as I used to, and I'm like, I still need to see No Way Home.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm a product of my time, and I enjoy the Raimi movies more than those.
Yeah.
Admittedly, it was good to see Tobey Maguire back, though.
Yeah. Cool. Anything else you want to share? Any final words? Tell us how people can connect with you if they want to reach out or learn more about what you're doing.
Yes. For all future self-portrayals of myself, feel free to follow my Instagram. It's my full name. There goes my light. My Instagram handle is long and complicated, just like this battery life of this fixture. But yeah, Jason Michael Fernandes on Instagram. Those are where all my updates are made. And in terms of what's next, I don't know if living the dream or is exactly it. Also, it's living my reality. That's just as important.
So accepting the reality of which you're in and moving forward through it.
I can only do what I do. I can only do so much. I'm just an actor from, the suburbs of Long Island. So that's in the context of me. That's fine.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and sharing your life with us today.
Thank you, Jason. And I really hope that this leads to a long and prosperous friendship out of conversations we might have had years ago. I greatly look forward to any future conversation, and maybe somebody who can who knows lighting, because I think I'm starting to go out here.
All right, sounds good.